But as always, let's start with gratitude. So just a big shout out to our panelists here, 80% of whom have flown in from one part of the world or another, and in some cases even stopped by another country. So I don't know what time zone they're in, but they're definitely going to be on point. I've personally checked in with all of them, and I think we're in for a really, really good show. But we'd also like to send a shout out to all the quarterbacking, all the PAs, the great team here at SALT, Holly, Joe, John, Michael, Nancy, Grace, Sarah, and of course, the Don himself, Anthony. It's always a good show out here. And we have basically roughly sub 40 minutes with 5 panelists that could each have a fireside chat. But the good news is it's crypto, so 40 minutes in TradFi is probably equivalent to 4 hours here. So we're going to cover a lot of ground. It is focused on Asia, but it is, at the end of the day, a global technology. So we're also going to take it up and move around as we kind of see fit. So a few just house rules just to manage, and so compliance officers can sit down. Nothing here is investment advice, despite how passionate and how much conviction may be up here. If some of you are missing conviction in crypto, you can borrow some from us, because trust me, there's a lot here. I'll set some context in regards to the market. After that, we'll dive into some intros, and then we'll have some open-ended questions as well as a few specific ones. And we'll make sure that everyone up here also has some closing thoughts to leave the audience and the viewers with.
I'd just like to say one word of gratitude towards your wardrobe designer.
Appreciate it.
Spicing up this panel for us.
Appreciate it. This is actually what Staci's doing, in the sense of telling me to at least give some context, given my macro background, given that I've been in the space since 2013. But it was a very, very different point a year ago. I sat up on this stage and I started off with 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 30 million. These were the amounts of money that I personally knew people who had lost in FTX. And there's people on this stage, including myself, who lost money in FTX. So a year ago, the space was in complete despair. We had multiple blowups, a lot of them actually tied to firms that were out here in Singapore, where there was Luna. You also, of course, had Celsius. You had 3 crooks, or 3 arrows, as they're kind of called. And it just kind of seemed that, things couldn't get worse. And then on top of that, what was supposed to be the pillar of exchanges out there, sorry, Hassan, but FTX, the one thing that everyone thought would have been the last exchange to go down, ended up pulling the classic old school TradFi fraud at the end of the day, commingling private client accounts with internal capital. What was interesting is, when you've been in crypto for a few cycles, you're used to 60, 70, 90% drawdowns, right? It sounds insane, but when you've made 20, 30x, it still makes sense. But what was different this time was this shock, this betrayal, right? This feeling of setting the space back, this disappointment. And of course, everyone coming through once again saying crypto is dead, it's a scam, and so on. So for context, we tanked. We got to about 800 billion in total value in crypto in the lows. Bitcoin got to around 15,500, just to give some context and levels, ETH to 800. And that was basically from a previous high in November 2021, when the space was worth about $3 trillion, right? Compared to, let's say, listed equities of 100 trillion, so 3% in total. You fast forward to where we are today, we are well off the highs. Year to date, we have Bitcoin at about 130%, we have ETH at about 75%. For all intents and purposes, the alts are still eating dirt and lagging, right? But that's also normal in this cycle. So, a few things to be cognizant of going into year end, and it's been a tough year. Macro has changed. We have interest rates at 5%. We have a Fed that has been hiking, and now maybe we're changing from the Fed being certainly done, at least I believe they are, but it's like, for how long are we here? When do they cut, and what's the magnitude of that? The world is flooded with debt. US government debt to GDP alone is 130%. Interest rate commitments out of the US are $1 trillion, and that's on $3 trillion of tax receipts. We've technically firmly broken up in Bitcoin and ETH, there's no doubt about that. And we, of course, have a pipeline of Bitcoin and ETH spot ETFs from some of the biggest asset managers in the world, probably representing about 25 trillion, of which BlackRock is 8 trillion. And we, of course, have the Bitcoin halving in April of next year. We've also seen a lot more acceleration of regulation in the space. Maybe in a weird way, the FTX blow-up has ended up being a good thing for the space as a whole. And in Europe as well, for any Europeans out here, any folks with exposure to Europe, by December 2024, MiCAR will be in effect. You can say what you want about the Europeans, but they definitely get their regulation in. So with all of that backdrop, we're going to get roughly a 1-minute intro from the panelists, both about themselves as well as the entities they represent. And they'll also keep in mind that not everyone listening here is necessarily a crypto native. And we're going to aim for signal over noise and context in all of this. Why don't we kick it off with you, Staci?
So can I just ask, how many people in the audience have bought Bitcoin or own any Bitcoin? Okay, does anybody own any altcoin? Okay, great. So my name is Staci Warden, and I'm the CEO of the Algorand Foundation. Algorand is a next-generation Layer 1 blockchain founded out of MIT. Our founder is a Turing Award-winning cryptographer, and he invented a couple of the important primitives that the crypto ecosystem uses more broadly, zero-knowledge proofs and verifiable random functions, most specifically. And he looked at the evolution of the ecosystem and thought, maybe I can build a pretty good blockchain myself. So we went, he raised a bunch of money in 2017. We went live in 2019. Not for nothing, we haven't been down for a second since.
Let's go down.
Pat LaVecchia, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm CEO and founder of Oasis Pro. Background, TradFi, Credit Suisse, Bear Stearns. Was not a believer in Bitcoin and ETH 5+ years ago. Understood blockchain and crypto were two different things. And what we've built is an end-to-end market solutions, digital, for large institutions on a global basis. So we have 5 verticals, tokenization, which is a buzzword right now. We have a KYC/AML vertical. We have a transfer agent, cap table management vertical, and issuance platform, and a secondary trading platform, ATS, in the US. We have unique licenses in the US, but our entire tech stack is going global. We're very excited about Asia. We're establishing in several geographies subsidiaries here, and we're really about digital securities moving into utilizing the blockchain space. Two other quick items. Our crypto chops came from MakerDAO. I was an OG at MakerDAO. We were initially funded through MakerDAO. And just going forward, yesterday there was a major announcement at Project Guardian at SFF. We were a part of it with JP Morgan, as well as Apollo. And we're a portfolio company of Apollo Investment Management, as well as Avalanche.
I'm going to get to that. John Nahas, Vice President, Head of Business Development at RVVUP. We're the firm behind growing the Avalanche public blockchain ecosystem. I oversee 6 verticals: institutional capital markets, enterprises, wallets, exchanges, custodians, as well as DeFi, NFTs, and gaming, with teams in Asia and Japan, Korea, India, and a broader Asia team, as well as Turkey. For those of you that are unfamiliar, Avalanche is a public Layer 1 blockchain that also has the ability to launch what we call subnets. So if you look at the traditional arc of crypto assets, Bitcoin is one chain, one asset. Ethereum, Solana, other chains are one chain, multiple asset. Avalanche, it has a multiple chain, multiple asset structure. And that allows for anybody from innovative and crypto native projects to enterprises to institutions to launch blockchains, their own sovereign Layer 1 blockchains that will eventually have interoperability and work within a global blockchain environment. So really excited for what's happening in Asia and to be talking about some of the great stuff we're doing.
Hi everyone, great to be here. My name is Hassan Ahmed. I'm the country director for Singapore at Coinbase and also the CEO of our local entity, Coinbase Singapore. Coinbase, I hope many of you know, is a global crypto platform. We're publicly traded in the US, started out in 2012 under our co-founder and CEO, Brian Armstrong, as a place to just easily buy Bitcoin. Since then, we've expanded into a full-bodied kind of global crypto platform servicing consumers, institutions, and developers. Along with sort of our US roots over the last few years, we've taken on sort of this trajectory of being more internationally present. And in Asia in particular, since we're over here, we've set up shop in Singapore about 3 years ago. We applied for a local license, and I'm pleased to say that we've received our full Major Payments Institute license from the MAS last month. Along with Singapore, we're also regulated and registered in Australia as well for our retail and institutional services. So we have our kind of core retail app that many consumers and users know us for, which has very, very broad distribution. But along with that, we have full-bodied kind of infrastructure and liquidity solutions for institutions as well. And we also are incubating a layer 2 solution called Base on top of Ethereum, which has been the fastest growing layer 2, reaching 100,000 wallets in about 8 weeks since mainnet that launched about 2 months ago.
Thanks, Hassan.
Hi everyone, I'm Cathy Zhu. I'm the Managing Director at PAC of CasperLabs. Casper Network is a layer 1 enterprise grade layer 1 blockchain. And CasperLabs, we are not a crypto company, we are a blockchain company. And we provide this professional service to help enterprise, SMEs, government, individuals to build those services. Anybody want to do tokenization, we help them to develop the software and also provide professional service to them. Nice to meet you guys here.
All right, fantastic. Appreciate that. So just diving straight in, I mean, it is titled The Future of Digital Assets in Asia, but for all intents and purposes, a lot of things we're going to discuss transcend one geography, right? But still sticking with maybe Asia in here in the beginning, what are you guys most excited about in Asia, given where we are and where, the last year that we've had? We're on the cusp of knocking on 2024. Is there a specific part that sticks out more than other? Pat, you and I talked about South Korea. Cathy, you mentioned Singapore is still, I think, one of the things, but just kind of freestyling. And maybe we can start with you, Cathy. Like, what are your thoughts? You've obviously moved from mainland China originally, pioneered a lot of the Chinese kind of original OGs in the crypto space, right, who are looking to expand internationally. What are your thoughts in regards to that and where you're looking now?
I think regulation we see August, the first license from Hong Kong issued to crypto exchanges to deal with retail users. And yesterday also MAS announced a big announcement. I will leave Pat to mention it later. So I think this is, in the past, why it's very hard for institutional money, for more retail users to be part of this market. It's because of lack of protection, lack of regulation. All those uncertainty block the money. And right now, we have this guidance of regulation in place. So I believe this is a good start. Even though we see a lot of up and downs, a lot of news on FTX, or all those things, but what we are seeing that is a good direction from Asia. And we do think this is gonna lead us to accept more institutional investors and also open up to more retail users. So this is what I'm really interested about.
Hassan?
Yeah, happy to jump in on this. So I am personally very bullish and very, very excited about the future of digital assets in Asia. That's part of my role here as well, to make sure that also kind of continues forward. But I moved here from the US about 4 years ago to Singapore, and honestly, the contrast is also, I think, quite striking as well. I think maybe from the policy angle, we sort of ran this kind of global survey, and what we found is that 83% of G20 countries and major financial hubs actually now have crypto licensing frameworks or are in the process of issuing one. So the key sort of message there is that there's some nations that are like getting left behind, but overall, most of Asia is moving forward on bringing kind of crypto into the tent, because there is appetite and there is resolve from policymakers, from institutions, from major stakeholders to make sure that the potential of this asset class is realized. I think on the retail side as well, one thing that I have kind of personally seen, I used to run a crypto exchange in the Philippines before I came to Coinbase, and just the on-the-ground energy in Asia, it's just different. You know, you come here and you walk around Singapore, Philippines, Indonesia, you can feel it. Even Singapore Blockchain Week, like there were just thousands and thousands of visitors who were thinking, hey, what is the next wave here going to look like? So some of the stats here are like with Indonesia, for example, there's 270 million population, about 180 million e-wallet or e-money users. That's sort of an analog of where I think that crypto is going to get to. And in Indonesia, it went from 4 million crypto users to it's about like 18 million crypto users in Indonesia today. So there's still a lot of headroom despite kind of the 2-3x that happened in the last bull run. Same with the Philippines, 110 million population, 70 million e-money users, and today they're roughly at about like 15 million kind of crypto users. And then you break that down by that there's like so many use cases happening. There's remittances, there's trading, there's blockchain gaming. There's a lot that's happening that's kind of very Asia unique, and it's very, very groundswell as well. So we're excited to kind of dig into that.
I appreciate that. So Pat, we'll get to you shortly on Korea. When I get to you, Staci, I want you to think maybe what, you know, from an Algorand Foundation perspective, you'd like to see more of in Asia, in a perfect world again. But you know, John, as you mentioned, you guys have quite a bit of a presence. And we've obviously seen the crypto potato being passed around in Asia, right? It was China first, then it was kind of Hong Kong, and then it was kind of Korea, and then, you know, it's been back and a little bit forth with Singapore. But like, you know, in regards to the places where you guys have a presence, does one place stand out for one reason or another, maybe more talent? Or, I mean, how do you guys think about it in that way? Or do you just see it as nodes where you just need to have an office?
I'll say Asia in general is thriving, right? Asia is leading. So talking about what we were speaking about earlier, I think what the things that happened over the course of the last year, the US overcorrected, right? They had to catch up, whereas Asia just decided to lead. There is more regulatory clarity, there's more use cases, but I think Asia in particular is special, whether it's with our partners in Japan, Korea, Singapore, and anywhere else in the region, because this region is more tech forward. And what we're seeing in Korea with top enterprises like SK Planet, or with gaming studios, or Japan with enterprises like Loyalty Marketing and Plaything, is that they are integrating blockchain into the back end of new tools, new ways of exchanging value, new ways of interacting with people. And these people are already mobile first and digital first, so it's not that big of a change. And Asia is really pushing that forward. So, you know, I'm really proud of the work we've done in Korea with SK Planet. It's the second largest conglomerate after Samsung. They have a nationwide loyalty and rewards program called 𝐿𝐴 with over 20 million users. And unlike in the West, where every loyalty and reward point is segregated or siloed between miles and hotel points, this is a nationwide point program. By putting it on chain, they've pretty much created a mobile wallet that's abstracted away from crypto. But you earn your points, and these points can then be sold, traded, redeemed, staked for benefits and other things. Conversely, in Japan, you have Loyalty Marketing Plaything with their Ponta application. They have 100 million users in Asia in general for marketing as well. Well, in the real world, these guys have an MOU. There's connections between them. Well, if Plaything has their own subnet or their own blockchain on Avalanche, and SK has their own blockchain on Avalanche, and these two have their own loyalty and rewards, you can start to swap these points across. And then, in particular here in Singapore, I think the credit is due to the Monetary Authority of Singapore for a lot of their leadership and their guidance in helping create a sandbox for professional organizations to build. So, as Pat mentioned, you know, yesterday we were really proud to be included in 2 of the 5 projects that they're doing. One with Apollo and JP Morgan, Layer 0, Axelar, and Oasis, and Wisdom Tree. And then we also have another one with Citibank, doing FX with a bunch of other partners as well. So it's, you know, at Fidelity and across the board. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you have institutional, enterprise, retail adoption across the board happening in Asia, and they're really pushing the space forward, and I think it's causing the West as well and the US to catch up.
Appreciate it. Pat?
Yeah, I completely agree. I'll take a slightly different tact in regards to what our experience has
I appreciate
been.
that, yeah.
So we really started focusing on the large institutions 2.5 years ago. And we're digital securities. There's, in the US market, there's a cloud, right? There's uncertainty in regards to regulations towards crypto. But our approach was always, hey, we're regulated. We're a broker-dealer. We have an issuance platform, secondary trading platform. In our discussions with the large institutions and enterprises, on the enterprise side, it's very interesting because they're even certainly in the U.S. and other parts of the globe, they're way ahead of everyone else. They're thinking of factoring on blockchain and all these other components. But I'm going to focus on capital markets and the regulatory area. And these large institutions would take our calls. Most of them were building everything themselves, tokenization and other areas of platforms. And we would be checking in. There's a saying in the US, feeling like a redheaded stepchild, which means you weren't really being focused on. That's what it was like. Then, Three Arrows, Luna, FTX. Toward the end, by Q4 of last year, with leadership changes at a lot of these institutions, we saw a growth of interest in regards to what we were doing. But it wasn't overnight, right? We had been doing it for about 1.5 to 2 years. All these discussions, proving ourselves out, credibility. And then on the institutional side, you just saw this ramp of use cases, beyond use cases, proof of concepts, and other applications, real-world applications, utilizing the blockchain. And what is the driving factor today? Cost savings. So on this Project Guardian that we were both involved with, JP Morgan and Apollo, on a massive scale involving as an example, 100,000 portfolios, the cost savings was 18%. That's unbelievable. So that's one component of the benefits of blockchain. But secondarily, that has nothing to do with settlement times or transparency. Those are other benefits of blockchain. So that's the real focus today. And we're just seeing a huge ramp up. We're in 20 some odd discussions. We've integrated with a number of firms, some of which I can mention, obviously JP Morgan, but also FIS, one of the largest fintech firms in the world. We're their platform for tokenization. We haven't announced it, but they're all moving in this area. One other comment similar to this conference, over the last 2 weeks, I've been at 2 other conferences, one in New York and one in London. My previous experience was that the audience was typically 80% crypto, 20% TradFi, TradFi moving into digital. These last 2 conferences, one was at the New York Stock Exchange and one was in London, it was a complete flip. It was 80% traditional firms, most name brand firms. These were digital conferences and about 20% crypto. Crypto is important, DeFi is important, but at the end of the day, it's about applications and the use of applications. So that's why we're really excited, because we can't even handle the inbounds right now.
Awesome. Staci?
You know, I think it's interesting when you talk about passing the hot potato between Korea, Hong Kong, and Singapore. And we are a registered Singapore company. And we have a good options vault, Algorand, and a good DeFi bridge, Messina bridge here in companies here in Singapore. But I think we, at our peril, at conferences like this, fail to talk about the rest of Asia, which is the developing Asia, which is where a very large portion of the global population resides. And we are quite focused on India, actually, as a platform, not just to nurture developers, but also to work with the, you know, in some of these developing countries, the kind of 5 or 6 conglomerates run the economy. And so we have good partnerships now, a couple of interesting things going on with the Tech Mahindra, for example, and some of these other big conglomerates in India. And we're having a big impact summit in India next month, actually. And we think India is going to be, if not one of the fastest growing countries for the next 10 years. They've got demography on their side. They've got not, I wouldn't say reformist, but a very private sector friendly government. And they want to be at the cutting edge of things. But let me contrast that with another country that is one of our most important countries, actually, and that's Afghanistan. So Algorand is a very high-performant blockchain, so we can do 10,000 transactions per second, immediate settlement, very low carbon footprint. And we are doing most of the remittance payments into Afghanistan because of the Taliban government. And we have, so there's a protocol, a company called 𝐻𝐸𝐿, and that is what most of the global nonprofit organizations are using to get money into Afghanistan. And you know, they've paid about 100,000 electricity bills through this protocol. And the reason that I think I want to bring that up is not so much to brag about our protocol, but to say that it highlights the very interesting components of blockchain technology more broadly that are brought to bear. The ability to do micropayments, the ability to hide from husbands and fathers and brothers your money, the ability to settle instantaneously, and the ability to hold wealth in a US dollar stablecoin as opposed to a domestic currency. These are all the things that blockchain technology can bring to bear in these very large population developing countries.
Fantastic. You can start off us with the next one, Staci, as well. So this is tagline is misconceptions. And what I'd love you to share, and we also got to accelerate the pace a little bit. So misconceptions either on Asia, crypto, or your own firm. What stands out, do you feel, that you kind of keep running into?
Well, I think one of the misconceptions is that, and I guess maybe I'll take this opportunity to talk about what I think the industry as a whole needs to do in order to realize the dream that we all have for a Web3 type based financial sector. And if you look at sort of digital investing, digital assets more broadly, it is about 80% retail and 20% institutional. And if you look at TradFi, it's about 80% institutional and 20% retail. So how do we get that institutional marketplace? I think that's the challenge for all of us on this stage. And you know, one of the misconceptions about crypto is that it's like this trustless environment, but actually it's a pre-funded market. And that means that you can't create, there's no credit creation in the way that we understand this in traditional finance. And we have got to get some of these infrastructure things much more right in terms of like back office operational risk. Who's got the private key? Is it the guy on the trading desk? How are you actually going to operate these things? You want me to send my payment to what offshore stock exchange is that? And you know, not your keys, not your coin kind of doesn't matter when it's not your money, when you have a fiduciary a custodial responsibility, you're holding other people's money. You know, and markets also need to be more complete, I would say. And I think Asia's doing a good job pushing this forward. But if you want to be a neutral position, you've got to have options markets. You've got to have future markets. You can't just have spot markets. So what we have to do as an industry as a whole is build out this 360 marketplace so that you can trade in and out of asset classes. You can keep a neutral position. And these are heavy infrastructure lifts, I think, but when that starts happening, that's when we're going to see, and it's not just having a Bitcoin ETF. It's when that stuff starts happening, that's when you're going to see the takeoff, I think.
All right, so same question, but we're going to have to go quicker with the answers, please, because we still have quite a few fun stuff to go through. So,
okay,
misconceptions. You got to choose one: Asia, crypto, or your firm, or yourself, if you want to clear up some stuff. So it's all good. This is the point to do it.
So, I alluded to this earlier. Cost savings is the driving factor we're seeing today, and then there's democratization, fractionalization, et cetera. But there's a disconnect between the C-suite of these large TradFi firms and their digital teams and reality, right? These are tiny. Digital and crypto right now, infrastructure is very important. It's just a speck in regards to these TradFi firms' revenues right now. So that misconception that crypto and blockchain are the same thing is hampering some of the infrastructure growth, and we got to get over that. And this Project Guardian, what's occurring in Asia, Europe, less so in the U.S., that's going to get the ball moving forward.
Great point.
I would say in the crypto side and with people building in blockchain and crypto, I think the biggest misconception is that there will be a single chain that will win outright, or a single chain can be used for all of the digitization and transfer of value across numerous different kinds of asset classes. I mean, we all believe in a multi-chain future. I believe in one so much so that I think eventually there'll be avalanche subnets. Personally biased, of course, but there is a misconception that there is going to be a winner-take-all or a two-winner-take-all, and that's just not going to be the case.
And Hassan, I believe you guys are just a boring exchange. I mean, you guys don't do anything else, right?
Yeah, I think one misconception that I hear a lot about is, hey, crypto just has terrible UX, and it's been years and nothing sort of happened there. So maybe just speaking more from the retail side, but it applies to institutional as well, is I think there's been a tremendous amount of work that's actually happened in the past year on improving kind of US and accessibility. So thinking about, hey, how do we sort of get that next wave of adoption to get people started? There's a lot of actually kind of interesting infrastructure that Coinbase has also kind of been working on, things, concepts around multi-party compute type wallets that really just allow users to get started in a semi-custodial fashion and then make their wallets self-custodial when they're ready, i.e. take the training wheels off. And then there's also MPC wallets for institutions, which have like all the proper institutional management controls and access controls that they need in order to be able to deploy assets under DeFi and whatnot. So Coinbase has some products that is built out on that, but those are like proliferating, and there's also other concepts around like account abstraction and whatnot that are kind of coming into play. So I expect that in this next wave, it's going to catch people by surprise of like how easy was it to onboard crypto so that people didn't even know.
If I can just jump in for 1 second, I also want to say that there's a misconception out there in the market that Coinbase is never going to list the Algorand US dollar stablecoin, but I know that's not true.
So this was just some backroom chatter that we were having, but
friendly competition. I said I could help you guys out if you need.
point noted.
Cathy, kind of off stage before we got on, we were talking a little bit about Hong Kong. You sit in a very unique role in the sense of, you also an OG from the old kingdom. What are the classic misconceptions you feel that people have in regards to crypto, China, Hong Kong as a whole?
I think the misconception is people sometimes mistaken cryptocurrency equals to blockchain, cryptocurrency equals to digital asset. Cryptocurrency is just one application of blockchain, and crypto asset just one. Cryptocurrency just one type of asset of digital asset. So if we think anything has value, get secured cryptographically in a distributed ledger, that is digital asset. So if we think out of this box, what we know could be a digital asset, valuable document, valuable data, valuable art, collectibles. All those things are digital assets, not just only cryptocurrency. Then we come back for the mass adoption, tokenization, the popular word recently, and real world asset. All those things can be tokenized and put on a digital. You can consider it's a digital asset, and what it brings more liquidity.
Love it. So we got some really rapid fire questions, so please, also rapid fire answers, right? And you can put down the hats of the entities you represent, at least until closing thoughts. So we'll start this off, and these you can also pass, so this is open mic, if you will. So this is the constraints. $10 million, you're starting from fresh, you have to do something in crypto. What is it, where are you doing it, why? Really quick.
I can start. So
don't say an exchange, man, please.
If I had to start something right now today for where I think the puck is skating to, I would probably start something to tokenize T-bills and start offering it out of Singapore and into Asia.
Anyone else? Thanks. That was quick.
MakerDAO is in part of my background, but decentralized finance. I'd focus on areas of decentralized finance, tokenized treasuries, et cetera. Decentralized finance, really think about it as collateralization of tokenized assets. So you have illiquid assets, you tokenize them eventually, once blockchain is ubiquitous, you'll have the opportunity at any time rather than sell necessarily, to borrow against it, which today isn't available. So there are platforms out there doing that right now, but there are going to be enhancements going forward, and every day new companies are being set up. So that's where I'd focus my energies.
I think I'd focus, on a wallet that captures digital identity, so you don't need the seed phrases and everything else, but has safety and security, but more so abstracts away the crypto complexity, so that fees that are usually paid in gas or whatever are not tacked on, but taken out, right? So like using some kind of gasless relay or fee abstraction, because that just confuses people.
Okay, so next question again, really quick, a little bit of a setup. What are people not talking about? Like when you come to conferences like this, there's a lot of smart people, a lot of brain power, but it's always interesting to me to see what's not being discussed, right? So just out of curiosity, is there anything that's screamingly out there that you've come across that for whatever people, it could be a region, it could be an underrated project, it could be a token, that you feel that to you is just so obvious and no one else seems to be able to see it? And please, don't call your own project.
I'll start here. This is something that drives me crazy, because you go to specific conferences and they're very niche based, right? You have your crypto native DeFi conferences, you have your institutional conferences, you have your enterprise conferences. At the end of the day, like, this is an underlying technology. It's not industry or vertical specific. The way the internet grew was you had separate servers and an intranet, and they weren't connected. Once they connected, they became the internet, right? You don't see it doesn't say Netflix powered by AWS. And I feel like this technology and what we're building and the applications that are being built span a lot of different industries, and we need to stop being so siloed and, oh, it's only this or it's only that, and this chain is for this and that application is for that. At the end of the day, this technology is for the transfer of value, and we need to look at it at that level.
I love it. I love it. On that same theme, and I'm loving the passion, what else drives you guys nuts, just in general? Like the frustration of the space. We're obviously big advocates. It's not easy. We all know that. Just the delta in the last year. But like anything to kind of share, or in a perfect world, if you could only change one thing overnight in crypto, what would it be?
I will start. I think the things drive me nuts is the scammers and scandals happening in the place. So the technology itself is neutral, but people misuse it. But this give a bad name to blockchain in general. So this is something I really don't like.
Yeah. We chatted about this before we came on, but you see ETH and Bitcoin tied to BlackRock. Sometime last week, there was an announcement, XRP. BlackRock had applied for an XRP ETF, made all this news. XRP jumped, and guess what? It was false. And BlackRock had to come out with this statement. That's the underlying tone of crypto and blockchain were intertwined for many years that unfortunately I think will never go away. It's always going to be there, and it's always going to cast doubt on the industry and what we're trying to do on the blockchain side.
One of the things that keeps me up at night is I think the blockchain industry is not doing a great job at like coordination amongst itself. I think everyone on stage here wants to grow the crypto industry 100x, but with so many kind of competing standards, I think sometimes we get a little too tribal. I think, how do we think about broad interoperability, like just broad education, broad like upskilling of kind of blockchain engineers? I think these are kind of industry-wide problems that unfortunately I don't think that we've done a great enough job to be able to accelerate that just yet.
I want to agree with that. I think there should be a governing body or an industry body with all the protocols and top players, and set a guideline for the rules that we will and will not will follow, because right now it's kind of all up in the air.
All right, well with that, why don't we start with closing thoughts, what you want to basically leave the audience with, and why don't we start at the end and work back, and Staci will close for us.
I think my closing thought will be if Asia is moving forward with the regulatory framework, but what I think is Western will catch up. And for Asia, the market normally focuses on retail a lot. And once I think Asia, if the testing ground works and all those regulation works, I do think Western, once catch up, all the institutional money can come into the space. I think that will have a mass adoption for the blockchain technology.
My closing thought is the tagline that I think about, which is from on-ramp to on-chain. So a lot of what I think about is, hey, how do I bring my users along to the ride so that they get fully on-chain in a way that they can really kind of experience the power of what crypto and blockchain can offer?
I think we were talking about this earlier. You're seeing a lot more adoption, a lot more serious users entering this space. And I think on our front, from Ava Labs, what we're seeing is, previous year cycles, we proved out the main chain thesis. That was our crawl. We launched subnets, that was our walk, and now we're going to start to connect a lot of these subnets together, and that's going to be our run moment, where you start to see traditional finance applications, enterprises, gaming, and all these different innovative applications on their own sovereign chains have connection and see that value transfer and really start to see the next stages of what blockchain can do.
Simply, I don't need to be doing this. I'm doing it because I'm excited about it, and I didn't expect this at this point in my career or life. And I equate where we are today, I'm just super excited, to 95, 96. I had a flip phone, if you guys remember that. I love that. It's still my favorite phone. And I thought that was, the future. Well, the iPhone came out in early 2000s, and who thought that we basically use our phones for everything, which we do. I can't get a car, et cetera. That's where I think we are right now with blockchain. And as an extension, crypto. In my mind, we're in 95, 96. And I can only dream about where the future is, but it's going to be that exponential growth. And that's what I'm really excited about right now.
I guess I'd like to leave you with the idea that traditional finance is basically broken. And the innovations in traditional finance from the last 2 decades have just been about improving the messaging that's going back and forth between bank balance sheet to bank balance sheet. And crypto and blockchain is it's not an improvement on that. It is an entirely different way of thinking about finance. And if you look at traditional finance, it's like crochet. It's beautiful from the outside, but you turn it around and it's like just a mess. And we are so proud of ourselves in the financial industry that we went from T+3 to T+2 in 2015. It took like 2 years to get there. And this idea that you don't get your money right away and that you can't make micropayments and that you don't have insight into where the payment came from and won't have insight into where the payment might go is just ridiculous. And the opportunity for crypto is, ladies and gentlemen, a blending of assets and management. If you think about tokenizing real-world assets, you can think about tokenizing it into tinier and tinier and tinier slivers so that it might actually function like money. And you can imagine making micropayments from Nigeria to Malaysia that happens because it's the same ledger in 1 second instead of in 10 days, maybe or maybe not. That is the vision that I have, and I think all of us share on this stage. And it's a coordination problem to get there. We have to have the infrastructure that I talked about earlier. We have to have the good user interface that my colleagues talked about earlier. But if you just keep in mind that vision, then I think we can all kind of herd cats on our way to the promised land, as it were.
Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for the panel. Thanks so much.